Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Rausam Pereira. Developmental assistance can play a major role in transforming Afghanistan, official sources said on Thursday, rejecting US President Donald Trump's jibe at Prime Minister Narendra Modi over funding of a library in the war-ravaged country. Trump took a jibe at Prime Minister Modi for funding a library in Afghanistan, saying it is of no use in the war-torn country, as he criticized India and others for not doing enough for the nation's security. In his first cabinet meeting in the new year on Wednesday, Trump asked India, Russia and Pakistan, as well as other neighboring countries, to take responsibility for Afghanistan's security as he defended his push for the US to invest less overseas. India may be building small libraries as part of the Community Development Initiative, but most of its investments in Afghanistan were on mega infrastructure projects, including the 218-kilometer road from Zaranj to Dalara, the Salma Dam and the new Afghan Parliament building. India has also been supplying military equipment to Afghanistan besides providing training to hundreds of Afghan security personnel. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze India's role in Afghanistan. Joining me on the program today are Amar Sinha, former ambassador to Afghanistan, Major General Ashwini Kumar Siwach, defense expert, Akhilesh Suman, editor, Foreign Affairs, Rajya Sabha Television, and Sriram Chaulia, Dean, Jindal School of International Affairs. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Ambassador Sinha, I'd like to start the program with you. Over the years, India has played a very vital and a very important role in Afghanistan. Tell us about the role that India has played in Afghanistan.
Well, our role really has been in nation building and reconstruction of Afghanistan, because I have seen the comments of President Trump. There are two aspects. Then one, of course, is the battle on the ground. But the other is Afghanistan is a living country and it needs to reconstruct while it fights a battle. And that is where I think even President Trump only 6 months ago has recognized India's role, that it's a key role, and we continue to play that. And the library, incidentally, is just I think it's a matter of speaking, but the fact is that in the education sector, India has played, I think, absolutely critical role in rebuilding Afghanistan. And
it's as important as a military role, isn't it? I mean, nation building always comes first.
Yes, absolutely. Ultimately, what are they there for? You see, you have to see that US came there post 9/11 with a specific purpose, and that purpose was to hunt for Osama bin Laden. He was found in Pakistan while they continued their battle in Afghanistan, and that is why we are seeing that on the military front they haven't had success. But on the socio-economic development front, I think every report, including the US analysis, actually points to the tremendous strides Afghanistan has taken in terms of democracy, development, infrastructure, education, women's rights and education. So I don't think we should... Personally, I feel there was a confusion. And I think he mistook the parliament for the library. Because I know that Prime Minister Modi knows his talking points very well, and he would not talk about library.
All right. I want to take the point that the ambassador has made forward, General. Like the ambassador pointed out as well, India's efforts in Afghanistan have been praised widely across quarters. So why should we change anything really, especially when everything seems to be working on the ground for us?
Frank, no doubt about it. As far as India is concerned, India is, one can say, a largest regional donor of $3 billion has been invested in Afghanistan. We are the one which have heavily involved ourselves in reconstruction of Afghanistan and capacity building. As you are aware that parliament was made by us, Salman Dam was made by us, number of hospitals, schools, all these have been constructed by India. And at the same time, the goodwill which we have earned in Afghanistan is tremendous. This is another asset which is there. As far as India is concerned, India has done considerably well. What is suiting us is this, that we have taken a goodwill of that. We do not want to get involved ourselves in militarily, because it is not in our interest. Because today, as far as Afghanistan is concerned, Americans are 14,000 and 8,000 is the NATO troops. Now, in case that Donald Trump is thinking of coming out and it want to reduce its troop by 7,000, and finally will like to come, and he wants that countries like India, Pakistan and Russia also get involved. As far as India is concerned, I don't think we should have our troops going there in Afghanistan.
Right.
It doesn't suit us.
All right.
But at the same time, we have to be very alert and alive. The dynamics in Afghanistan are fast changing, and the players are changing very fast. The Taliban is now becoming very bold. Taliban and American talks have already taken place in 16 December in Dubai, and Taliban is not agreeing to have a direct talks with Afghanistan.
All right.
And neither.
We'll get into that aspect probably a little later on in the program as to what India's role should be going forward. But before that, let me bring in the professor into the picture. Sriram Chaulia, what was the rationale behind President Trump's latest jibe, do you think? The ambassador said probably some kind of a confusion really on the part of the president, but what really is going on there?
Well, Frank, I think I see kind of an internal tussle between different sections of the American body politic here. Trump represents the most populist and isolationist wing in it, and he is looking for ways to justify, to transfer the burden, as he thinks, off the US shoulders and onto others in the region. And that's why he's basically saying, we've been taking too much of this and load, and now it's your turn and you should rise up and contribute more. On the other hand, if you see, and I think and there is a bit of a naivety involved, because he's saying Pakistan should also be sending troops there. I mean, that obviously negates the fact that Pakistan has already been militarily involved and is the spoiler there. So nonetheless, even when it comes to civilian assistance, the US, Trump calculation is that we have spent 900 billion there, and we got nothing out of it for 17 years. And, it's time to pack up and, and leave it on to the local players to sort it out. It's not my mess. That's how Trump wants to get rid of this whole monkey off its back, as he sees it.
Then why did they get into it in the first place?
So, well, he would blame previous administrations, and he, as a politician, for him, it's very simple. He's saying essentially, but on the other hand, you see, even with the American spending, they have lost 2,500 soldiers nearly in the last 17 years. They are war weary, and Trump is channeling that kind of sentiment in the American public. But within the US administration, look at the State Department and the career bureaucrats and the Defense Department, the Pentagon. Most of them are against this kind of hasty, withdrawal.
Right.
And you see, Alice Wells, a Deputy Assistant Secretary General, Secretary of State, made a comment only a few months ago praising India and saying that India is a responsible donor and aid giver in Afghanistan.
Absolutely,
saying that we want to triangular cooperation with India to rebuild Afghanistan. So there is a section which is more, I would say, a saner wing within the American state, which wants to continue the policy of the past. But on the other hand, there is a growing restlessness, and Trump represents that anger and restlessness, saying, nothing has worked in the past. I don't want to spend more blood and treasure on the same old thing and move on.
All right. This issue of, the domestic issue really, as far as the United States is concerned, I want to get into that as well. I'll come to you, Ambassador, to talk about that and a word on that. But before that, let me go across to Akhilesh Suman. Akhilesh Suman, India's stand as far as Afghanistan is very clear, isn't it? I mean, right from the beginning, India has maintained that no boots on the ground, and we've been, very sure about that.
Yeah, you're right, Frank. Actually, just now, Randeep Surjewala has tweeted, and he has told that Mr. Trump has no right to mock Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So you can understand the type of consensus in India across party lines that yes, India has a particular role. And US had been insisting to take a military role. Not today. It has been just after 9/11. I remember Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the Prime Minister, and there was a pressure from America that you should also join. But there was an all-party consultation at that point of time, and India decided not to send its troops. So I think that the same policy is continuing. And India had never been responsible for what has happened in Afghanistan. It was US responsibility, and US was fighting a war of hegemony with the USSR, and that Afghanistan was ravaged. So India has decided one role, that yes, we have to empower people, we have to skill their people, so that if Afghanistan comes into normal state, they would have enough capacity to run the country. And I think that India is going on the same line, Frank.
All right. Ambassador, as far as the domestic issues, really, as far as Trump is facing at the moment, do you believe that that has any bearing on what President Trump has said?
I don't think so. We know that right from his campaign, he is committed to withdrawal from Afghanistan. That is, of course, one aspect of it. But this talk about India, Pakistan and Russia sort of continuing the fight, I don't agree really, because ultimately, look at it, there's a contradiction. Americans themselves are negotiating with Taliban for a peace, sort of some sort of settlement in Afghanistan. So India, of course, as part of the SAARC countries and as a neighborhood, we would not want a perpetual fight going on in Afghanistan. We would want actually peace and reconciliation. So we need to really talk about that. As far as the decision on his withdrawal, of course, he is the supreme commander and he can take a call. But look at it this way, that if Americans want to leave, what is stopping them from leaving? They can pack and go tomorrow. Ultimately, they are negotiating terms of engagement or disengagement, so to say. And I think that they should also be talking to the Afghan government on the terms on which they would leave, because we don't want some sort of a Taliban cannot be treated as a government in exile which just is para-dropped into Kabul, and that won't be accepted by the region, and I don't think it will be accepted by the Afghan people, you see.
Yeah, the situation in Afghanistan is extremely fragile at the moment, General. The ambassador brought up the issue of Taliban. You too brought it up in your opening comments. How do we, kind of balance out things really in Afghanistan?
See, Frank, what is happening is that number of players are playing a game in Afghanistan. Now, as far as America is concerned, they have opened a direct front with the Taliban. Now, Zalmay Khalilzad, who is an envoy of America for peace process, has already had a direct talk with Taliban in Dubai. And the two issues which were coming there, that, where their consensus have not reached, where America is trying to push Taliban to have direct talk with Afghanistan. And when the negotiations are going on, that is the time when the peace should prevail. The ceasefire should be there. The Taliban has not agreed on to that so far. So therefore, as far as America is concerned, they have opened direct front with Taliban, trying to put pressure that they should directly speak to now the Afghan government. So far, it has not happened. Let the other players which are there, now the player like Russia, China, Pakistan, Iran and some Central Asian states, they have also directly opened their front with Taliban. Now imagine what has happened is that Russia has done a peace conference very recently there, where the Taliban has also party to it. We as Indians also have gone, but at an unofficial level. Now Iran has a direct talks with Taliban. Pakistan involvement in Afghanistan is full. You know it. They are not the part of the solution. They are part of the problem. They are the one which are now assisting the terrorist Taliban as well as Haqqani group and creating a problem in Taliban. The reason why Taliban is today in the mess, the Pakistan has to share the responsibility. Pakistan is a part of the problem. Now what has happened is, due to this problem, Pakistan is putting tremendous pressure that there should be no role of India as far as a new Afghanistan is concerned. And that is where is the challenge as far as India is concerned. We have invested heavily there. We have invested heavily on Charbar. We have bypassed Pakistan and directly going to Afghanistan through the Charbar corridor and going to Central Asian state. If we do not find ourselves as a relevant player in time to come, that will be a loss to us diplomatically. Right. So we have to be alert, alive, and ensure that whatever is the change dynamics into this region, we should remain relevant.
All right, we should remain relevant. That having been said, Professor.